What is up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel. I am super excited for today's video because I'm going to walk you through a really simple guide to kind of beating Trial of Ascension normal relatively on auto mode. I find that sometimes with this I have to use auto mode, maybe level 90 to 100, but sometimes I get lucky and I can auto all the way through 100. But I want to show you my basic team, and then I want to show you a more advanced team that I use that really allows me to kind of take things to the next level. So as you can see, I'm actually starting on Trial of Ascension level 65, and the reason that is because by the end of this video, we should be at or clearing level 70, so you can kind of see me get the Devilmon. I can walk you through a couple of different things and kind of show you how I'm able to auto Trial of Ascension normal in Summoner's War. So this is my standard team. We're going to start, and you can kind of see the mechanics of how this team runs. But the first thing is you do need a Beretta lead. So one of the nice things about Beretta is that he's got a 19% team speed buff when you use him for the lead. And so he can be a really powerful asset to your team. So you really want to get that Beretta as soon as you can. He's one of the easier monsters to obtain in the game, and for me, he's a total non-negotiable. So Beretta is the Fire Sliff, and you definitely want to get your hands on him. And the second monster that I like to use in my TOA auto team that I'm actually going to be switching out in just a few minutes here for one of my absolute favorite monsters that's a little bit harder to obtain is Sig. So Sigmaris is the Water Phoenix, very obtainable because he's a fusible monster. So he's not the easiest to obtain in terms of it does take a little while to get the required resources to fuse the monsters, but he is free to play, totally obtainable, and totally worth your time to get. What's nice about Sig is that he's got really high damage, which is great as you're in those earlier stages. He's also got crowd control. So one of the key elements of Trial of Ascension is what we call CC, or crowd control. So if you're doing some research online, you're kind of going to find people talking about CC, or crowd control. And crowd control is basically what just happens when you stun a monster or freeze a monster. So Sig has a AoE, or area of effect attack, that freezes everyone. And that's a really powerful skill to have. Additionally, that skill also lowers incoming attacks. So it lowers the enemy's attack. So you can see he just used it there. It froze the monsters, and it also lowered their attack, which means that you take less damage while actually preventing them from having their turns. So Sig is a really powerful monster, totally fusible. I'll show you in just a second. I had him on Fatal Blade for quite a while, so I had him on a Fatal Blade Rune combination, but I changed that recently because I found that there was something a lot more powerful that I could be doing with Sig, which I'll show you here in a second, which is I switched him to Violent Runes. So one of the nice things about Sig on Violent and Blade is that his damage is a little lower, but he has a chance to move faster. So what's really nice about him moving faster, or getting, I shouldn't say faster, I should really say getting more turns in because of the Violent Runes, which allow him to get a second turn 22% of the time, is that his skills refresh a lot quicker, and he also deals more damage. So a really powerful monster to have, okay? So those are the first two monsters that you really want to have, Beretta and Sig. Now, the next monster, as we're moving down the line, right in the middle there, is Veramos. And Veramos is, again, a free-to-play, fusible monster. I really like Veramos for Trial of Ascension because he also has crowd control. But the other thing that he has that's really, really powerful is he's got a passive skill where every turn he cleanses one effect from your team. So when your team has negative effects like, you know, whether it be lower defense or lowered attack or DOT, damage over time, Veramos is able to cleanse that, and that's a really, really powerful thing for TOA because a lot of the monsters in TOA normal, especially as you ascend higher into TOA normal, do have the ability to kind of give you harmful effects, and you want to be really mindful of those. So just to kind of recap what we covered up to this point, you got Beretta, who is a nice lead for speed. He also does damage over time with his Fire Phoenix attack, which is really great as you start to approach, you know, the 70, 80, 90s levels where the monsters just have more and more HP. Really powerful to have a DOT. We've got Sig, great crowd control as well as high damage dealer, really powerful. We've got Devilmons, which is a fantastic cleanser to cleanse those harmful effects right off of you, as well as crowd control for every enemy on the other side. His crowd control is an AoE effect, which is really, really great. So as we continue to move down the line, we've got Belladonna, and I love Bella for so many reasons. You'll notice that my Bella is on a 2A, a Second Awakening. That is not required to get results with Trial of Ascension. So if you're doing Trial of Ascension and you find that you don't have time for a Second Awakening, or you just you're not at that level where you can Second Awaken a Bella yet, that's totally okay. Bella is still a really powerful monster for a couple of reasons. One, she lowers defense, which is great. The second is she's got a single target strip attack. And strip attacks, or strippers as they're called in the game, is basically when a monster can remove all beneficial effects or some beneficial effects. So Bella's second skill actually strips all beneficial effects from a monster. So let's see if we can get Bella to do a strip here as we're talking, but I really like that skill because as you start to face monsters, and especially bosses at the every 10th stage who have beneficial effects on them, it's really nice to have a single target stripper, at least for the bosses, okay? Now, the other really nice thing about Bella is that she is a healer. So what you're gonna see right here, this is kind of the perfect timing for this, is that opposite monster of us that just froze us is essentially going to cause us to take a little bit of damage, right? So when you get frozen or you get stunned or you get incapacitated in TOA, what happens is you take on damage. And that's kind of going to happen until you get to a point where you are really fast, really high damage, and really have a system down for Trial of Ascension. But when you do take damage, Bella's third skill, her Mobilize skill, is a really powerful skill because it heals your team, and you can skill at Bella to have a really powerful heal by feeding her other Inamis by farming them in the free scenarios. So Bella, very easy to get skill ups for, very powerful healer, single target stripper, an absolutely necessary element to your team if you want to cross Trial of Ascension normal without having to, click all those buttons. So you can see I'm on full auto mode right now, and we're still doing really well. And that's because we have a healer there when we do take on damage to kind of back us up. Now, one other thing that I want to mention about Bella is that she is a little harder to obtain. However, you can get her through a secret dungeon on Sundays inside the game. So on Sundays, the Dungeon of Light opens, or the Hall of Light, opens, where you can farm for light essence, which you need to awaken your light monsters. But you can also find secret dungeons, and that's where you find the light Inunami, or Bella, hanging out. Now, what's really nice is that if you have a friend that finds that dungeon, or you join a world channel where someone else is referencing that dungeon, you can add them as a friend and basically get access to Bella. So unlike Beretta or Mav, who we're about to talk about in a second, you don't really have to summon to get Bella. You don't need to rely on an L&D scroll. You don't need to rely on any special luck. You can basically get her any Sunday in the game by finding someone else who's uncovered her secret dungeon, adding them as a friend, and then collecting the pieces to be able to summon her. Now, the fifth monster that we're going to talk about for your TOA auto team is going to be Mav. And Mav is the Penguin Knight, the Wind Penguin Knight, very, very powerful for a couple of reasons. His first skill attack does have crowd control. It's a single target stun 50% of the time, which is pretty powerful, but not overly useful. His second power is Declare War, and he just used it there to provoke the enemy. Now, what Provoke does when you're using it is it basically requires the enemy to attack that person. So it's a single target where it basically says, hey, that enemy has to use its first skill on me. And essentially that prevents things like area of effect attacks from enemies. And what's also nice about it is that when Mav uses the declare war skill, he also heals right before that. So right before he provokes an enemy and forces them to attack him, he is really strong against that attack, right? So he basically heals himself and then takes damage. So really powerful for bosses, really powerful for, we could say, any enemy that's going to cause you to take on an exorbitant amount of damage, or when you're fighting an enemy that has an elemental advantage over one of your more important units, I find that can be really powerful. So if you're fighting a monster who is a water monster or a water boss, and they keep going after Beretta, that can be really frustrating because you need that area of attack DOT from Beretta to really take out some of the higher level monsters. And so you kind of run up against this problem where in some of the more advanced stages, the water monsters can team up against your Beretta or water bosses, and you're kind of stuck. Except you have Mav to provoke the water units and stop them from hitting Beretta. So his provoke is a really powerful tool. Now, the last skill, his third skill, is really, really powerful because it's a cleanser and it reduces skill cooldown time. So his third skill, Winds of Change, basically removes one harmful effect from every monster on your team. So we'll see if he's going to use it right here, Winds of Change. He just used it, and you can see it removes negative effects from anyone on my team that had one. It only removes one, but it does cleanse one negative effect. The second thing it does is it increases your speed. Speed is essential in the Trial of Ascension. And then it decreases your skill cooldown time. So for all of your skills, your third skills for Beretta, for Sig, for Vero, and for Bella are all really powerful. You've got that DOT, you've got that AoE attack reducer, and freezing effect. You've got the stunning area of effect attack. You've got the healing. But those have the longest cooldowns of all of your monsters. So by using his third skill, you can use them faster. So if one of your monsters has a 3-skill cool or a 3-turn cooldown, when Mav uses that third skill, it changes it from 3 to 2 turns. And so that can be really powerful. Now, you've kind of seen the mechanics of my personal favorite auto team that works really, really well. And this is the auto team that I like to use. But there's one other powerful monster that I will sometimes switch out for Sig, and that is Verad. And Verad is the Ice Dragon. Now, he's a Nat 5, and he is really hard to obtain, but he's really, really powerful in Trial of Ascension if you have him. And the reason he's so powerful in Trial of Ascension is because he's got this absolute 0 skill, which not only freezes area of effect all the enemies, but it also reduces their attack bar to 0. His second skill also freezes his third skill also freezes all the enemies. So his first skill is just an attack. It doesn't really do much for you. Second skill freezes all the enemies, and then the third skill reduces the attack bar and freezes all the enemies. So essentially, when you've got Verad on your team and you've got him in combination with Vero, the Dark Ifrit, and you combo them with Mav, you basically make it so that your opponent doesn't really have the opportunity to get a lot of turns in. So I'll kind of illustrate what that looks like on this one. You can see that Vero stunned everybody that first round, which was great. Nobody got a turn off. And now what's going to happen again is Verad, he just took everybody's attack bar down and froze every single monster on there. Great, so they still didn't get a turn. And then what's nice, and we kind of glossed over this, that Beretta also has, is he has a single target attack bar reduction. So he takes a single monster and reduces their attack bar by 100% with his turbulent skill. So all of these monsters work together really, really well, but you can see what just happened by leveraging Verad that second round. No one else even got a chance to go. Now you're going to get to see the true power of what happens when this team is working together with Verad, because when you get to a boss stage, especially level 70, it's a little challenging, but what's going to happen here is he is going to basically freeze out the enemies who are not the boss and kind of stop them from taking action. So this is just kind of, I wanted to do level 70 because I think it illustrates the power of this auto team when you can kind of see them taking them out. Now, what's really powerful is that we also put our Vero on Violent, our Dark Ifrit, he's on Violent, because on this level specifically, not all level 70s, but on this level 70 specifically, you can see that the negative effects really stack up. And because of that, we need a cleanse as fast and frequently as possible. So by putting our Dark Ifrit on Violent, he also gets to take more turns and reduce the number of negative effects that we have more frequently. So just like that, we cleared Trial of Ascension 65 through 70. I walked you through my auto guide and how I use that auto guide. So if you got lots of value, please drop a comment below, leave a thumbs up, let me know what you thought. Make sure to like and subscribe. It really does help this channel reach more people and give more information. So that's my guide to TOA Auto Normal. If you have any questions, like I said, just drop them in the comments and I'll be sure to get you a response. I know that the big question is kind of how do we get all the way to level 100? And I will tell you that this is the team that I use pretty frequently. This team right here of 5, Beretta, Verad, Dark Ifrit, Bella, and Mav. That works incredibly well for me. It's got crowd control, it's got healing, it's got DOT, it's got everything you need to absolutely crush it. I know that Verad is a little harder to obtain, so I do like Sig. Like I said, if you do use Sig, you may have to go a little bit further in terms of autoing between like 80 and 100, maybe 90 and 100 if you get a really powerful Sig. I walked you through who I've got, and the last thing that I kind of want to walk through just as we continue this battle is what I have on each of these monsters. So for me, it's vital that Beretta is on Despair. It's vital that Verad is on Violent if possible. If not, you want him on Swift. Sig, you want on Violent if possible. If not, you want him on Fatal and Blade. For your Dark Ifrit, again, Violent is really important. If not, you want to get him on Swift so that he's moving really fast and taking as many turns as possible for that cleansing and stunning. Bella, I have on Violent. Again, really, really powerful to get them on Violent. When in doubt, or if you can't get them on Violent yet because you're still in the earlier stages, you can absolutely put him on Swift. And then again, Mav, I have on Violent. You want to get him on Swift as well. So basically anyone except for Beretta, you want to get on Swift so that they are moving fast, or Violent if possible. And if that doesn't happen, you want to get them moving as many turns as possible, so maximize that speed. So in Tower of Ascension, speed is the name of the game. You want to make as many turns as possible, to do as much crowd control as possible, to do as much damage as possible, to do as much DOTs as possible. So when in doubt, just remember the mechanics is minimize the turns they take, maximize the turns you take, and then minimize effects that harm you with cleansers, and maximize negative effects that you put out with DOT, strippers, and damage dealers. So there you have it. That's my guide to TOA Normal. If you enjoy this video, let me know. I will do another video where I cleared level 100 and walk you through what that looks like with some of my favorite monsters. So if you want to check that out, that'll be on my channel shortly. Until then, keep on keeping on, and we will chat next time.